Take a deep breath and think about this. Who are you when no one is watching? Not the version you display on social media, not the identity shaped by the expectations of your family, your friends, or your job, but you, in your rawest and most unaltered essence. If this question makes you uncomfortable, you are not alone. We live in the age of information, but we have never been so distant from ourselves. Every day we are bombarded by external voices telling us what to wear, what to think, what to desire. Brands convince us that our identity can be bought. Social media teaches us that validation comes from likes and followers, and without realizing it, we become reflections of the world around us instead of being the authors of our own story. But here lies the danger. When you live only reacting to what the world expects from you, your identity dissolves. You become a puppet of trends, an echo of other people's opinions, a prisoner of empty rewards. And the worst part? It happens so subtly that you don't even notice. Today, we are going to talk about this silent war. A war that is not fought with weapons or armies, but with distractions, social pressures, and illusions of success. A war against your soul, and the question you need to answer is, are you fighting, or have you already surrendered? Human identity should be like a mountain, solid, unshakable, resistant to time and storms. But for many, it has become something very different. A sand dune, shaped by the wind of others' expectations. Think about this. A mountain stands firm, regardless of the seasons. But a dune? It changes shape with every breeze, shifting without resistance, without its own direction. And that is exactly how most people live. From an early age, we are taught to adapt, to please, to go with the flow. And without realizing it, we spend our entire lives being anything but ourselves. What happens when you spend years, decades, bending yourself to fit into the molds the world imposes? You become a stranger to yourself. You may even be successful. You may even be admired, but deep down, there is an emptiness, because none of it was built on who you truly are. And here is the brutal truth. Many people die without ever having known their own soul. They spend their lives collecting titles, possessions, status, but never stop to ask themselves, is this really mine, or just something I was told I should want? If you feel like you are becoming a sand dune, being carried from one side to another without control, it's time to resist, because the world will not stop trying to shape you. It is up to you to decide whether you will be a mountain or continue being carried by the wind. If the world is constantly trying to shape you, how can you resist? How can you avoid being just another sand dune carried by the wind? The answer can be found in the words of a man who saw this battle long before us. Ralph Waldo Emerson, one of the greatest thinkers of the 19th century, wrote an essay that remains a battle cry against conformity, self-reliance. But what does it mean to be self-reliant? Many people confuse it with selfishness or blind rebellion. But Emerson was not talking about ignoring others or acting impulsively. He was talking about something much deeper, the courage to trust yourself. We live in a world that teaches us to seek approval, to follow rules without questioning, to accept ready-made truths without ever testing them in reality. But Emerson challenges us to do the opposite. He teaches us that true wisdom does not come from simply absorbing what we are told, but from experiencing, reflecting, and building our own worldview. Think about this. How many of your beliefs are truly yours? How many ideas do you defend because you have lived and tested them? And how many have you simply inherited without ever questioning? Self-reliance does not mean rejecting everything around you. It means having the courage to filter, to not accept knowledge passively, but to transform it into something of your own. Because in the end, if you don't build your own identity, someone else will do it for you. And that someone could be society, the media, or any other force that doesn't care about who you truly are. So the question remains, are you living according to your own truth, or just following a script that was given to you? If true wisdom does not come from simply accepting what we are told, where does it come from? Emerson believed that each of us carries within us a source of knowledge that cannot be taught, bought, or explained by formulas. Something that does not come from books or teachers, but from a much deeper place, intuition. He describes this intuition as a kind of silent genius, a flash of truth that arises within us before we can even explain it. But most people ignore this spark. We prefer to trust what has already been validated by others, the teachings of great thinkers, statistics, concrete data. But Emerson warns us, a man should learn to detect and watch that gleam of light which flashes across his mind from within more than the luster of the firmament of bards and sages. In other words, what comes from within you has more value than any external knowledge. But here's the problem. If you don't trust your own intuition, it weakens. Think of intuition as a sword, a blade capable of cutting through illusions, lies, and the pressures of the world. But like any sword, if it is not sharpened and used, it becomes dull and useless. And that is exactly what happens to most people. They ignore their intuition for so long that when they finally need it, they realize they no longer know how to listen to it. So ask yourself, how many times have you felt that instinct, that silent certainty within you, and ignored it? If you want to reclaim your identity, you need to start sharpening that blade again. You need to learn to trust your own light before it fades away. If intuition is this sharp blade that can cut through the world's illusions, why do so few people use it? Because the world doesn't want you to trust yourself. The world wants conformity. From an early age, we are trained to follow rules, to fit in, to be predictable. We are taught that being consistent is a virtue, that changing our minds is weakness, that questioning is dangerous. But Emerson asks us a question that shatters this illusion. Where is the master who taught Shakespeare? The answer? He didn't exist. Shakespeare did not become Shakespeare by following a manual. He did not imitate anyone. He trusted his own voice, and that is the difference between those who leave a legacy and those who go unnoticed. The great thinkers of history did not blindly follow traditions. They dared to think for themselves, but most people do the opposite. They imitate, they look at those they admire, and try to copy their gestures, their words, their ideas. But here's the brutal truth. When you imitate someone, you never become that person. You only borrow what they have, without ever truly owning it. And the worst part? By trying to be someone else, you abandon the only thing that could make you unique, yourself. So, ask yourself, are you living your own story, or just repeating someone else's script? Conformity has a price. But the world is clever. It doesn't charge you directly, it pays you, and it pays well. If you follow what is expected of you, you will be rewarded. Society will give you applause, stability, acceptance. You will be promoted, praised, included. But all of this comes at a cost, your soul, because these rewards are like an oasis in the desert. They seem promising from a distance, but when you get closer, you realize it was just a mirage. Emerson warns us about this illusion with a brutal phrase, a political victory, a raise in income, the recovery of a sick friend. You think good days are coming, don't believe it. Why? Because if your peace depends on external factors, it will never truly be yours. Today, you get a raise and feel good. Tomorrow, someone earns more than you, and the satisfaction disappears. Today, you receive praise and feel valued. Tomorrow, the attention fades, and you feel empty again. That is not peace. That is dependence. True peace does not come from external achievements. It comes from living according to your own truth, from knowing that, regardless of what the world gives or takes from you, you remain yourself. So ask yourself, are you building a peace that comes from within, or just collecting rewards that evaporate the next day? If external rewards are a trap, why do we keep chasing them? Because society was built for you to trade your freedom for security. Emerson describes this mercilessly. Society is a joint stock company in which each member agrees to exchange his freedom for the security of bread. In other words, the world does not want you to be free. It wants you to be predictable. And to achieve that, it offers you an invisible contract. Follow the rules, think like everyone else, don't question. And in return, we will give you comfort, acceptance, and a place to belong. Sounds like a good deal, right? But here's the problem. The price you pay is your soul. Because by accepting this contract, you stop being an individual and become just another cog in the machine. You start accepting ideologies without questioning, following trends without reflecting, repeating opinions that aren't even yours. And little by little, you dissolve. What was once your identity becomes just a reflection of the group you belong to. You no longer think, you merely echo. And the worst part? You don't even realize it's happening. So, look at your life now and ask yourself how many of your choices were truly yours and how many were just the result of the invisible pressure of the world around you. If you don't know the answer, you may have already signed this contract without realizing it. If society wants you to be predictable, it has a powerful weapon to ensure it, the idea that changing is wrong. How many times have you heard phrases like, "But you've always thought this way. Be consistent. You've changed. What happened?" To you, the world teaches us that we must be consistent, that we must maintain the same opinions, the same habits, the same beliefs. But Emerson shatters this illusion with a simple and devastating phrase. A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. In other words, rigid consistency is not a virtue, it is a prison. Think about it. The world is in constant change. Nature changes, the seasons change, the universe itself is expanding. So why should you remain the same if you cling to what you were in the past just out of fear of seeming inconsistent? You are sacrificing your growth to maintain an illusion of stability. Emerson gives us a powerful metaphor to understand this, the metaphor of the ship. Imagine a ship sailing across the ocean. If you look closely, you will see that it seems erratic, constantly changing direction, adjusting its sails to the wind. But if you look from afar, you will see that it follows a straight line toward its destination, and that is how your life should be. Up close, it may seem like you are changing your mind, exploring new paths, abandoning old certainties. But from a distance, all of this is part of your journey to becoming who you truly are. So ask yourself, are you holding on to old beliefs just to appear consistent? Or are you allowing your soul to evolve along with the world? If blind consistency is a prison, then changing your mind is an act of courage. But here's a common mistake. Many people confuse self-reliance with arrogance. Being self-reliant does not mean believing you already have all the answers. It means having the courage to seek the truth, even if it means admitting you were wrong. Emerson reminds us of this with a powerful phrase. The way of life is abandonment. In other words, to grow means to abandon old certainties, to abandon beliefs that no longer make sense, to abandon old versions of yourself that no longer serve your purpose. But this requires something rare, humility, because it is easy to cling to our ideas. It is comfortable to believe that we already know everything. But the truth is that no one evolves alone. If you truly want to grow, you must learn to listen even, and especially, to those who disagree with you. Because when you close yourself off to opposing opinions, you are not protecting your identity. You are limiting your worldview. True strength is not in never changing your mind. It is in having the courage to question yourself, to open yourself to new perspectives, and to abandon whatever is necessary to keep moving forward. So, ask yourself, are you willing to abandon whatever is necessary to become who you are truly meant to be? If abandoning old ideas is essential for growth, then we must question even what we have been taught to consider a virtue. And one of the greatest examples of this is charity. From a young age, we learn that donating money, contributing to social Causes and helping institutions make us good people. But can goodness be bought? Emerson did not reject charity. What he rejected was the illusion that donating automatically makes us virtuous. Because often, charity does not come from the soul. It comes from social obligation. People donate because they want to appear good, because they want to ease their guilt, because they want to be seen as generous. But true goodness does not need an audience. Emerson makes this clear when he says, "There is a class of persons to whom I would go to prison if need be." In other words, true compassion is not a superficial gesture. It is a real commitment. It is not about signing a check and moving on with life. It is about truly caring, about being willing to act, to get involved, to fight for what truly matters, because authentic goodness is not an isolated act. It is a way of living. So ask yourself, do your good deeds come from your soul, or just from the need to appear, to be a good person? If true goodness comes from the soul, the same applies to greatness. But here's the problem. Most people believe that greatness is something distant, something reserved for geniuses, for the chosen ones, for those born with a special gift. They look at great artists, scientists, and thinkers and think, they were different. I could never be like them. But Emerson reminds us of a powerful truth. The great genius returns to man. In other words, greatness is not something external. It is already within you. The great names in history did not wait for permission. They did not follow norms. They did not wait for the right moment. They did not seek approval. They simply trusted their own vision and acted, and the only difference between them and you, they believed they could. Think of the metaphor of the castle. The ordinary man looks at a castle and sees it as something unattainable, something grand, something he could never build. But what is a castle if not stacked stones? The same stones we step on every day. Greatness is not in something distant. It is in the materials already around you, in what you do with what you have, in what you build with what already exists within you. So ask yourself, are you waiting for permission to be great? Or are you ready to claim what is already yours? At this point, you may be asking yourself, where do I start? The world makes us believe that change must be grand, that we need to transform everything around us to find meaning. But this is yet another illusion. True transformation does not begin in the world. It begins in you. You do not need to change the system, overthrow institutions, or convince millions of people. You only need to reclaim possession of your own soul, because the peace you seek, the greatness you admire, are not in external factors. They are not in money, in status, in the validation of others. They have always been within you, but most people never realize this. They spend their entire lives wandering, searching for something that always seems just out of reach. And then they die without ever having found themselves. Emerson describes this tragedy with a brutal image. The fate of the poor shepherd who dies a few yards from his cabin in the snowstorm is an emblem of man's condition. In other words, we spend our lives searching for a home without realizing that it has always been within our reach. And this home is not a physical place. It is your identity. The question is, will you keep wandering, or will you finally claim what has always been yours? In the end, it all comes down to a choice. Will you continue to be shaped by the world, or will you finally take control of your own life? Society will keep trying to push you toward conformity. It will offer you empty rewards. It will tell you that it is safer to follow the path already laid out. But security is not freedom. And without freedom, you will never truly be yourself. The only way to escape this trap is to trust yourself, to listen to your own voice, to sharpen your intuition, to abandon what no longer makes sense, and to build an identity that is truly yours. And this is not something that happens all at once. It is a daily battle. So, here is the challenge. Stop waiting. Stop seeking approval. Stop following scripts that were not written by you. Seek your truth. Live according to it. Now I want to know, what is stopping you from trusting yourself? leave a comment and share your thoughts. Let's continue this conversation. If this video made sense to you, like, share, and subscribe to the channel, because the world needs more people who dare to think for themselves. See you in the next video. Until then, be your own mountain.